Welcome into the LSU Sports Insider podcast. It is Tuesday, June the 17th. We have a special live edition of the LSU Sports Insider podcast for you. I'm Zach Ewing, joined live from Omaha by Koki Riley and Scott Rabelais. As they, in the background, you get the tunes of Louisville versus Oregon State in an elimination game there at Charles Schwab Field. Of course, the first game today was a 10 a.m. special. That was the completion of LSU's victory over UCLA. The Tigers win 9-5, and they are now in the driver's seat for their bracket there in Omaha. And I guess we start there. Koki, I know they showed this on the broadcast. This is the 8th time LSU has started 2-0 in Omaha. 6 of the previous 7 times they won national championships. So pretty good place to be.
Yeah, about as good of a place you could possibly be. I guess the only problem is the Anthony Eyanson question, right? Because he throws, 43, 48 pitches last night, but then the game gets halted, and all of a sudden he wasn't available for today, and he may not be available for tomorrow. So you kind of have that, I guess, issue lingering. But other than that, with your pitching staff, even the non-Eyanson Anderson innings have been excellent so far. Casan Evans comes into today's game, throws 4 shutout innings, a couple runs come across, inherited runners that Cooper Williams gave up, but then Chase Shores comes into the game and is fantastic again in another short spurt. So I think this team's in a really, really good spot, not just with their starting pitching, but also they've had some good looks with their pitching depth, and then offensively, and 9 runs today. It was a very strong performance at the plate as well.
Yeah, I think you go to Omaha expecting the unexpected to a certain extent, and the only thing LSU's encountered as far as that goes would be the weather, Rab, and the fact that they had to play this game over 2 days and burn probably 2 of their top 3 starting pitchers at this point in both Eyanson and Evans. That's where this conversation goes now, and we'll talk about that. But I don't know. What is the mood of the team? Let's start there, because I want to recap this UCLA game first. They've got to be feeling pretty good, even if it did not exactly come out the way they wanted.
Well, first of all, they've dealt with tons and tons, as we've been talking about. It's almost kind of an inside joke with us covering LSU, as Koki's dealt with all season long. They've dealt with tons and tons of weather delays. And so this is just another part for the course. This is not something that was very unusual for LSU. Their 19th game has been affected by some kind of delay out of 65. So it's
more than that, by the way. It feels like more. 19 feels low.
Sure. I'm sure it does for Koki and the Tigers especially. But they kind of go with the flow. As you said, they know it's the College World Series. Something unusual may happen. Something you may have to deal with. I don't recall LSU having to deal with a middle of the game delay, stop the game and come back tomorrow since 1987. So it's been a very long time. This is rare. What happened to them? But it's but they dealt with it, and I think the mood of the team is very confident that they're gonna find a way. And Anthony Eyanson gives up 3 runs in the first inning. They come back with 4. They have a delay. Anthony can't pitch anymore. They bring in Casan Evans. He does a tremendous job for close to 5 innings, and then they bring on Cooper Williams, a little bit rocky. I mean, UCLA is a good team, and then they bring in Chase Shores and they shut the game down. So I think they're very confident. And yes, Koki's right. Yeah, there are issues. The fact that Eyanson only got to pitch 3 innings. When could he come back? How much could he come back? That's an issue. But of course, you'd rather be sitting there with the issue of that than being UCLA or Arkansas, who's facing the end of their season tonight.
And to answer your question, Zach, just a little bit of insight here. Gavin Guidry for this entire week has been walking around with the boom boxes, and he's blasting, various types of rap music, and that's sort of pumping up the guys, while also when you're around the dugout and near the locker room or in the locker room, there's just a very relaxed feeling around this team. It feels like they've been here before. Nothing really seems to faze them at the moment. They're locked in when they need to, but again, they just seem very relaxed, while very loud hip hop music is drowning out everything else. It seems like from an audio standpoint. So That's kind of the mood around the team right now. And again, just very, very comfortable, very relaxed.
What seems to be the favorite hip hop song among LSU? Do you have any insight there?
I don't really have that insight. They do like to play Stephen Wylam's new walk up song. It feels like they're really into that. It's not just hip hop music; it's also like like techno stuff, dance music. And Guidry, who's been kind of the guy in the aux for them since obviously he's out for the season, but still here. He also started playing UCLA, the song UCLA, after they won today's game. So that was a funny little jab. But yeah, that's kind of the mood around the team right now. Just very very relaxed, I'd say.
Yeah, and why shouldn't they be right now? So we will go through the game just a little bit. This is kind of our fill-in post-game show. Obviously, didn't have one last night. Didn't do a quick one today, but we will we'll recap the game here. First, I want to let you know that the postseason coverage of the Tigers in Omaha is brought to you by Our Lady of the Lake Health, the official championship health partner of LSU athletics. So, Rab, you kind of mentioned it. UCLA jumped on Eyanson in the first inning a little bit. It was 3-0. They didn't really hit. I mean, I remember one kind of hard hit ball, a single to left. A lot of it was just seeing eye singles, and there was a walk and a couple of ground balls that were just hitting the right place. And that was actually UCLA's 8th inning rally too. The Bruins really did not square up LSU pitching very often in this one. They scored the 5 runs, and credit to them for that. But I would just say Eyanson and then Casan Evans and even Cooper Williams, who his line makes it look like he struggled, and then Chase Shores, none of them really were giving up bullets.
No, it was UCLA is a team that does a very good job of putting the ball in play, and they put pressure on your defense. And in this case, they were putting the ball in play in places that was hard for LSU to make an out. Deep in the hole at short, deep at in the hole at second. Just the little things that were very probably aggravating to LSU, but they didn't crack. They didn't commit an error in the game. They ended up making a couple of really nice plays on plays later in the game, and didn't allow the momentum to get too far away from them. As you said, UCLA, not a team with a whole an overwhelming amount of power, so that wasn't going to affect LSU, and then most likely, and then, but yeah, it was just a lot of kind of dink and dunk for UCLA. It kind of reminded me of the game they played here in 2013 when they beat LSU in LSU's first game in this ballpark, 2-1. And they played that game all the way to the national championship. But LSU was able to get the upper hand. And you figured if LSU would score enough runs that scoring 5 or more runs this year, right, Cookie? They got a great record, and they proved that again today.
Yeah, and I mean, you can lose those games, right? Like LSU beat Arkansas with one of those games on Saturday. They didn't hit a tremendous number of balls hard on Saturday, but sometimes you just put the ball in play enough, take advantage of your opportunities. So UCLA does that in the first inning. Really important, I thought, that LSU is able to answer before the rain delay. I mean, they immediately answer with 4 runs in the bottom of the first. The big blow, of course, was Jared Jones' 3-run homer that makes it 4-3. They add on a run, I think, in the 3rd inning to make it 5-3. And then we hit the rain delay. I don't know. At that point, like, you can sit here and say LSU had this momentum and it was a bad time for them. I think both teams were probably thrown for a loop a little bit, Koki, by having to sit there at the ballpark for like 3 hours, not knowing whether you're going to resume last night, middle of the night, in the morning. I mean, it's not an ideal situation for either team.
No, not at all.
Or for the media, for that matter.
No, not for us either. But it seemed like they did a pretty good job of obviously pushing through all those delays and whatnot. And as you said, getting those 4 runs was just absolutely huge, right? And I think LSU saw UCLA pitching really, really well over the last 2 days, I guess now. And putting a lot of balls in play the same way UCLA did. I thought they struck the ball a little bit harder than the Bruins did overall. I thought UCLA actually did a pretty good job of. I thought they did a good job of hitting the ball hard on the ground. And there were some dinkers and dunkers in there, but for the most part, I thought a lot of their hits were earned, but I just thought LSU was a little bit more consistent in generating those consistent at bats. And then the Jared Jones home run was such a big difference maker. Like the long ball is really important, and it's hard to do here. And it's almost feels like more of a bonus when it happens here because of how like big and cavernous this ballpark is, right?
Yeah.
Especially with the wind blowing in. The wind was blowing in when he hit that ball 388 feet, 110 miles an hour off the bat. In a game where you win by 4 runs, those 3 are absolutely massive. And that was that. You could argue that was the difference in the game.
I also think it was really important the way LSU started today. Scott, they brought Casan Evans out there. He goes 1, 2, 3 in the top of the 4th inning. Maybe UCLA had 1 hit in that inning, but it was a pretty quiet top of the 4th inning. And then bottom of the 4th, immediately 2-out rally. You had Curiel singles with 2 outs, Ethan Fry walks, and then you get RBI singles from Stephen Milam and Jake Brown. And you not only have you not lost any of that momentum, but you've extended the lead now to 7-3. Casan Evans is rolling. I thought that was really important, as were the insurance runs they got, one each in the 7th and 8th inning.
Yeah, they've done a very good job in this World Series of holding the team so far, holding the team at bay, and maybe answering when they needed to. They got the extra run. Arkansas hits the solo home run right, and on Saturday, and they get another insurance run, to put them back up 3 late in the game, 3-run uprising over, and they take the lead. They never relinquish it in this game. And UCLA, like I said, they're a good team. They can put pressure on LSU. Through just a slew of pitchers of the Tigers. I kept thinking, when are they gonna conserve their pitchers, thinking that they're gonna have to play again tonight and possibly tomorrow, but they didn't. They threw like 8 or 9 guys at LSU, and but the Tigers' offense has been just opportunistic enough in the series. 12 hits today. So that was a good job. Got the first home run of the series from Jared Jones. Jared Jones is an interesting case. 0 for 5 on Saturday, struck out 5 times, and he's 2 for 9 overall in the series. But he's now got he's 2 for 9 with a home run and 4 RBIs. Just a very professional looking line score. It's just stand and whack. Just stand and swing for the fences, and that's what he did in this game. And will you take that bargain? Yeah, if you're LSU, you'll take that bargain because he's driven in 4 runs for you. So he's not going to hit and hit and hit and hit. He's not going to be a guy like Ethan Fry today. Got on base 4 times today and scored 3 runs. He's not going to do that most likely, but he's going to might give you the big blow just when you need it. And I got to say something again about the fact that Jay Johnson, he is so Mr. Baseball. He tinkers with his lineup constantly, and he's constantly moving people around. Saturday he had Derek Curiel hitting 6th, and Josh Pearson in the lineup because of the lefty pitcher and all this stuff. Today Curiel moves back. They move Jones down to the 5th spot. Stephen Milam's up to 3rd, and it all seems to work out. It all seems to work out to LSU's benefit. Most of these moves, not every move you make is going to work, but most of the moves they've been making so far have worked very well. And obviously there's a debate. Do you save Evans? Do you pitch him today? Well, they felt like they had to get him. It seemed like there was not much debate on his part. That they had to get him out there, win the game today, and then worry about what you have coming down the line.
Yeah, that's a good transition. And one more note on Bear Jones' homer. That the wind was blowing slightly in and right to left, so it was working against that ball. But he still was able to muscle it out. Obviously, a huge moment in the game. LSU wins 9-5. Now, what you mentioned, Rab, is I just think crucially important. LSU, in some ways, went all out to win this game. And as much as we talk about them being in control, Koki, to me, this was, I don't want to call it an elimination game because obviously there's still a chance if you lose. But boy, you look at what UCLA's got to do now. Rab, you mentioned they use 8 pitchers to cover 8 innings today. Some of those guys can pitch again. They only threw 10 pitches or whatever. But they've used their pitching. They're going to have to go play Arkansas tonight, somehow survive that, and then beat LSU twice. LSU would have been in that boat where if you lose this game, you're all of a sudden facing Arkansas, one of the best 2 or 3 teams in the country, if not the best team in the country, with your season on the line, just 5 hours later. So it wasn't an elimination. And then, by the way, if you win that, then you're still up against it, having to play Wednesday and Thursday, having to beat UCLA twice. So this became I felt like after the rain delay, that much more of a crucial game for LSU to find a way to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And I sort of wrote about that in my game story, just the fact that like all of a sudden the stakes of the game became higher because of what happened with this delay. Where, I mean, even if you win, you don't get that day off. In the loss, all of a sudden your season could end in 24 hours because you have to run into an Arkansas team that is much more rested than you are suddenly, and that would have been maybe not disastrous, but it would have been like such a tough hill to climb. Especially when you probably wouldn't have Anthony Eyanson available either. So there was just a whole ton of issues with that, but they got the job done today with this 9-5 win, and I just feel like they're in a really good spot heading into tomorrow. I'm really curious to see, are they going to push Eyanson and maybe try to use him at some point for tomorrow's game? Will they play tomorrow at all? Because tonight's game between UCLA and Arkansas, like the weather is
more rain in the forecast, baby.
More rain in the forecast. So I think there's a chance that game gets rained out to some degree, and they have to play it tomorrow morning. So how all of this is going to work is kind of beyond me. But I just really feel like a win today was absolutely crucial if this team wanted to win the national championship. And right now they're still the favorites, I think, because they only need to win 1 out of 2, and Coastal Carolina is probably going to be their toughest challenge up ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like they're going to have to find a way to beat Arkansas again. We'll see what happens in tonight's game whenever it's played, but either without Kade Anderson and probably without Anthony Eyanson, at least in the first game. We can talk about that. But yeah, I think that's the perfect way to put it. The stakes were raised so much when you decided to burn both Eyanson and Evans in this game, because you're sitting here thinking, if you're Jay Johnson, you're like, okay, we're going to use Eyanson to beat UCLA and get to 2-0. If something goes wrong, I've still got Casan Evans to lean on to get me through the elimination game and kind of get back to the bracket final. Once you decide after the delay to use Casan Evans, you've taken away that security blanket, right? Like now, if you don't win, you are without a pitcher that you trust facing facing Arkansas in a must-win game. That would have been really, really difficult. And like you said, they've rested, and you're playing your second game of the day, really difficult situation. So they went from, I don't know what percentage chance to win a title, but it certainly wouldn't have even been 50-50 to now you feel like they're better than 50-50 to win this national championship. The rain delay, before we move on, Scott, I'm wondering your opinion about this, because there's been kind of a lot of, complaining online. People are mad online, as they say, about this rain delay. Like, what should the
mad online? No,
I know, shocking. Should the NCAA have done something differently? Should they have pushed up the Arkansas Murray State game yesterday to get both games in? Should they have even let LSU and UCLA start last night if they knew this big thunderstorm was coming? Could they have done anything differently? Should they have done anything differently? What's your opinion on that?
We always could do something differently, sure. Jay Johnson, it was easy for Jay to be very diplomatic after the game because he won and his team's sitting pretty. So, but this is very different from some of the weather delays we've seen at LSU this season, right? Where there's a cloudless, rainless weather delay going on. He said that they felt that the NCAA, and it's not up to him, or John Savage, the UCLA coach, that they had a big enough window in which to try to play, and the weather moved in, and it just stayed in. And I thought they were going to resume the game at some point late last night. I thought they were going to resume it and try to get back on schedule last night, and especially with a team having to come, obviously now UCLA had to play 6 innings today, and they play. Potentially 9 innings tonight. That's very taxing on your pitching staff. So, but then they called it just after 10 p.m. and then they came back this morning. But yeah, there's always something different you can do. And if you do something, if you change something, then someone's going to criticize that move. So it's you just have to roll with the punches and expect some unexpected things to come your way. And again, this is something else she's dealt with all year long. I think it's and I thought, for whatever it was worth, was a small advantage for LSU over a UCLA team that plays in LA, very rarely has to deal with any kind of inclement weather. There might be a smog alert or something in LA, but they don't need to deal with, rain all that much during their season. And LSU's dealt with this, multiple times. So it's I thought that was kind of good for the Tigers in terms of the psyche. But yeah, I mean, NCAA is an easy target always, and I think they could have done something different, sure. But in the end, they're trying to keep things as close to the schedule as possible, and TV plays a factor. Let's not pretend that it doesn't. ESPN's got these 1 o'clock and 6 o'clock windows then to play the game. So, we'll see. Hopefully, it won't happen again, but it could happen again tonight, obviously.
Yeah, I don't know. I tend to agree. I mean, I know TV is definitely a factor. You kind of come to Omaha again, expecting the unexpected. I saw where this will be UCLA's first doubleheader of the entire season, playing tonight. First time they've had to play 2 games in one day, which a lot of those are not scheduled, but sometimes in the regional you get one. UCLA has not. So I think you're right. I think LSU was probably better equipped to deal with a little bit of adversity. We see now why these coaches are so careful in the regional to say, now, are we going to be able to get the whole game in, or is there going to be a lightning strike in an hour? Maybe we should delay. And it upsets people, and it's frustrating, and nobody likes to sit at the ballpark with no baseball all day. But that's why they're doing it, because they don't want this situation. Now, I'm of the opinion that if this situation happens, that's just part of it. Who can deal with it better? And Koki, in this situation, it was LSU.
Yeah, and I will say this. I don't think they would have started that game if we were at Alex Fox Stadium.
No, I don't think so either.
I think that's safe to say. LSU just did a better job of handling this situation. But I also just felt like they were the better team overall, especially once Eyanson was able to sort of settle down, and then you're putting a guy like Kade Anderson, and he sort of continues the role that he was on during the regionals. So yeah, they're in a good spot. So I am sort of curious to sort of dive in, like, who do we think is going to start this next game? Could it be Anthony Eyanson? Could it be somebody else? I'm kind of curious to hear y'all's thoughts.
Yeah, let's.
I think it's interesting. Eyanson could come back sooner. I mean, yeah, he threw 44 pitches last night. It's not a tremendously taxing amount. He could come back on relief tonight, especially if they play Thursday. And if not, then you play him. Maybe he is your certainly one of your game 1 or game 2 starters. And what do you do with Kade Anderson? Do you bring Kade Anderson back? He can't come back tomorrow, I wouldn't think, and pitch. But after going so long on Saturday. But if you had to play Thursday, you'd probably pitch him like they did Paul Skeens in the Thursday game last year, 2 years ago against Wake Forest. But you sure, boy, I'm trying to do the math in my head, which is you play the what if games. Could it be possible for LSU to get to the championship series and not have to use and still have Eyanson and Anderson in the bank? I mean, that would be just a dream scenario, I think, for Jay Johnson, and really turn the tables on what looked like a very adverse situation in terms of the pitching. I don't know if they can do that, but it seems like it's at least possible.
We saw a blueprint for a similar situation, and it's not exactly the same because you're talking about different pitchers, but in the Sunday game against Little Rock in the regional, where they had the option, LSU did, to pitch Casan Evans and Zach Cowan and kind of just put the hammer down. But they also had this game in hand where it's like, well, if you lose this one, you still could save those guys. And that's the path that Jay took, right? In the regional is he saved them and said, let's save them until we know that we need them. And I think especially with a possible championship series lurking this weekend, I think you try to get through tomorrow without using Eyanson and certainly Anderson is not going to pitch tomorrow. And then if you have to get to Thursday, if Arkansas or UCLA is able to push you to Thursday, that's when you say, okay, it's time to kind of pull the fire alarm. Anthony Eyanson's going to have to pitch. Yeah, he only 44 pitches on Monday. You could certainly come back and throw another, 80 pitches on Thursday. That's not crazy. It's probably your bullpen day anyway.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing about that is that might take Eyanson out of a potential championship series.
Yeah.
Maybe you could come back and use him in relief on
You still got to get there, though. You still got to get there.
That's the thing. You got to get
there. Yeah. So, and it is kind of interesting, like when you use these guys and when you don't, because like Arkansas starting Zach Root tonight against UCLA. So that means LSU will almost certainly not see him tomorrow if Arkansas wins.
And they won't see Gage Wood either.
They won't see Gage Wood because he just threw a 9-inning no-hitter with 19 strikeouts, which is one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen at a baseball park. Maybe the most remarkable thing I've seen.
Yeah, we haven't had a chance to talk about that. That was amazing.
Yeah, unbelievable. So, and Gabe Gackle, I guess he could be available for the Thursday game, which is, I guess that'd be the one big name to really look out for Arkansas. But Arkansas's got a lot of pitching depth, so it's not going to be easy to beat them tomorrow if that's the matchup. But they're definitely going to be more tired heading into that game. So I'm really curious to see how all of this sort of shakes out for LSU.
Yeah, I think it's obviously it just kind of puts into clarity how much of an advantage it is to be the 2-0 team, because you can sit back and say, let's put together the best plan we can without using our studs on Wednesday, and maybe we can win without them, and then everything is set up for, we're throwing Kade Anderson in the championship series game 1, we're throwing Anthony Eyanson in championship series game 2, we're throwing Casan Evans in championship series game 3 if it gets that far. We're going to throw our best at Coastal Carolina or Oregon State or Louisville, whoever survives, and if they beat us, fine. We've got our best lined up. If you don't win Wednesday, then you start having to spend some of those coins on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that, but again, like you said, that's what happened 2 years ago. Paul Skeens did not pitch in the championship series. He was in the bullpen ready to go game 3, didn't even pitch because he had pitched on Thursday against Wake Forest to get them there. And that's the boat Arkansas is in. You got to get there before you can worry about winning it. So that's the advantage LSU is in. But I am curious to know, if you had to best guess, who starts the first game, whether it be Wednesday or whatever, Koki, and then who would start and if necessary, game Thursday?
I think Newt starts tomorrow, if I had to guess.
I'm always hoping you'll say Newt.
Newt followed by Cowan, you think, is the plan?
Probably, yeah. Something along the lines of that. Wouldn't be surprised if you see Williams again. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Chase Shores again. I think you're going to see Chase Shores a bunch. We've already seen him twice, and he's looked much better. So I think that's kind of what you're looking at when it comes to Wednesday. And then on Thursday, I think it's going to be all hands on deck. Like Kade Anderson could potentially come in relief. I think Anthony Eyanson probably starts the game, if I had to guess. I don't think they'll throw Case Evans on 2 days rest, but I could be wrong. 1 day's rest, but I could be wrong. This is the College World Series. This is what you play for. So we've seen Jay become extra aggressive with throwing his best guys out there, and I think you're just going to see that again if that happens, if they have to play an extra game, especially.
Rab, do you agree?
Yeah, you always get into this position, right? Even if you have depth of pitching like LSU has had all year, they came in with the second best ERA of any team in the College World Series this year. But you're always going to be in this position where you have to scrounge up that third or maybe fourth starter to get you through to the championship series. And once you get in the championship series, a similar thing. You see it in the SEC tournament all the time. You have teams, by the time they get to the final, they're pitching the sixth guy out of the bullpen as their starting pitcher. So it happens a lot there. But you're pitching every day. But I don't think there's any reason to bring back Eyanson or Evans tomorrow, unless it's like for some, you're 2 outs. It's a 1-run game, and you don't trust anybody else. Send Anthony out there, or Casan, and you get a couple outs and you win the game. Other than that, I don't think there's any reason for that. Like you said, try to roll the dice, Zach, and your offense just scored 9 runs. And remember, the other team's pitching is going to be depleted as well. Jay Johnson's right now is sitting there hoping for a 14-inning game tonight between the Bruins and the Razorbacks, right? So, even I don't care who Arkansas has got left and who they're throwing. If they win, they're depleted. If UCLA wins, they're even more so. So I think it's. It's you're looking at probably a game where you have to score runs on Wednesday and Thursday if you're forced to that game. And Thursday you could be in a better situation. I think you're at LSU. You do what you did in 23 and bring back a pitcher like Skeens. You bring back a pitcher like Anderson or Eyanson in that situation. But I think tomorrow you try to go out and win a slug slugfest and coming off a good offensive performance, I think they probably feel confident that they can win any kind of way that they need to win, and not to overlook it. how well they played defense in the postseason. Cookie, I don't remember how many errors they've had in the whole postseason, but they haven't had any in either game here so far. And it was a joke. I remember covering the team in 1996, and every time they made an error, we're like, "Oh, they're going to win the game now because they made an error." The Skip Bertman philosophy was kind of like, put the best 9 hitters in, and then we'll worry about playing defense. But that's not the Jay Johnson philosophy. He's very concerned about defense. That's why we've seen Michael Braswell in there with a sub-200 batting average a lot, although Tanner Reeves did start this past game, but Braswell came in. So defense has been phenomenal, for LSU in this series and all postseason and all season, and it continues to be a positive factor that, you've seen little chinks in the armor for these other teams in that regard that for LSU's held it very well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an I remember the one error in the second game against Little Rock that Daniel Dickinson made. I don't remember any others. There may have been one kind of inconsequential somewhere or the other, but that's a good point. And then the other thing that I would bring up as part of this discussion is I think there's a real possibility they have Friday as an off day because of rain in part. That's why they have that day in there. If LSU has to play a second game, it could be Friday, which would give even more rest to Anderson or Eyanson if you wanted to use them. It would also make it less likely that they would be available in any capacity for the championship series. But again, if you get into that winner-take-all game, you kind of have to throw caution to the wind a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're going to be playing that Friday game, if I had to guess. One way or another. And I think LSU would have the advantage still going into that Friday game if that were to happen, because some of those other guys would be available. But if I had to guess, I think there's going to be rain tonight, and I think they're going to have to push the game back. That night game between UCLA and Arkansas, and then and I think Arkansas has the pitching depth to sort of stave off not just the Bruins, but also maybe a slight favor heading into the second LSU game, because LSU won't have Anderson or Eyanson available. Maybe they might have Eyanson available, but they won't have him fully available, right? So I think it's gonna be tight,
Koki, see Zach Cowan available right on the bottom of the screen. We have not seen him since he started Game 7 of the regional against Little Rock, right?
Mm-hmm.
Under what circumstance do they try? Jay Johnson will never say I don't trust him anymore. But this is a guy who left April with a 1.12 ERA, and now his ERA is 3.09, but he has not pitched great over the last 6 weeks. Under what circumstances do you see him getting the ball in starting a relief role?
I think he's probably going to pitch the next game, which is tomorrow. And because they gotta, you'd still put him ahead in the pecking order of some of these other guys who they haven't thrown yet, right? So even if you want to start someone like Newt, he's probably one of the first guy. He's Cowan's probably one of the first guys you go to after him. So that's just kind of how I feel, because Chase Shores can't pitch every inning in relief. And Cooper Williams didn't look amazing in his first outing. He's a freshman. That's a lot to ask for a guy. And he's also more built for the left-handed hitters, right? So Cowan, he has not pitched very well for the last 6 weeks or so, but one of his better outings was actually against Arkansas. So actually he did. So there is a bit of a sample of success against the Razorbacks in particular. If he can get him really off balance with his changeup, he might actually be a really viable option again. So I wouldn't be surprised if he started, but I would be surprised if he didn't pitch at all.
He was in the bullpen in the 8th inning in this game when the Tigers called on Cooper Williams. I think just kind of a pocket of lefties in the UCLA lineup. Had it been righties, I think that would have been Cowan. So it's not that they are refusing to pitch him, but he certainly has been knocked down the pecking order just a little bit. All right, we're going to take a kind of a big picture view of this to wrap things up. But first, we need to take a quick 30-second break here on the LSU Sports Insider.
There's no better place to parlay than Caesars Sportsbook. With quick picks, you can tap right into pre-built, ready-to-bet parlays right from the home screen. And if you miss tip-off, no worries. You can play same-game parlays live during the action. Plus, it's never been easier to find and bet on the biggest matchups of the day, so you can keep up with all the action. Caesars Sportsbook, proud partner of the NBA and the only sportsbook app with Caesars Rewards. Download it today.
All right, welcome back to the LSU Sports Insider. Subscribe to our LSU Tigers at NOLA.com YouTube channel. We will be with you all the way through Omaha and also gearing up preseason football coverage very soon. So it's not just an LSU baseball podcast, it's an LSU sports podcast. So check us out at the LSU Tigers at NOLA.com YouTube channel. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, all of that good stuff. We are coming to you live with a special episode. Koki Riley and Scott Rabeloy joining me live from the Charles Schwab Field press box in Omaha, where the College World Series is taking place. Our postseason coverage of LSU baseball is brought to you by Our Lady of the Lake Health, the official championship health partner of LSU athletics. LSU 2-0. They will face Arkansas or UCLA in a game scheduled for Wednesday night. Whether it starts Wednesday night is a question. Whether it ends Wednesday night is a question. We don't know what it's going to be. But that's up next for LSU. They're going to get two bites at the apple, whether it's at the Razorbacks or the Bruins. 1994 basketball national championship rematch, isn't it? Rab, is that right? Arkansas and UCLA? Is that right?
Ooh.
No, it was Arkansas and Duke.
Okay.
Arkansas 194 and UCLA 195. I think
That's right. I do remember that.
Back-to-back years. So a couple of basketball schools playing in baseball, and the winner will get LSU. LSU gets two bites at the apple. My question is, if you look at the sports books, LSU is now basically even money. I think I saw plus 105, meaning they're 50-50 among the 6 teams left. LSU's in the driver's seat. I mean, it's 50% LSU, 50% everybody else might win this thing. What stops LSU from winning? If it goes wrong, Koki, what does LSU have to guard against that could trip them up?
Losing both these games to Arkansas, because it's very possible. And I know that's like a very general statement, but it's like not having the pitching depth necessary to take them down once. Because Arkansas, I think, does have out of all the teams that could have lost that first game between them and LSU, Arkansas could have afforded a little bit more, just because they just have so many options, or potentially viable options out of their bullpen to go along with that powerful offense. So I think LSU probably had the slight advantage going into that first game, but I think again, it's 2 games, so LSU has way more wiggle room than Arkansas does. But at the same time, I feel like, Arkansas really getting their stuff together, I guess, and really using that pitching depth to its advantage, like that could really trip up this LSU, because I mean LSU has had trouble scoring runs against elite SEC pitching, and they're still that one team that has that left. Coastal Carolina, they have very good pitching too, but it's just not quite that. I have trouble believing that it's the same level of Arkansas, just in terms of talent. So I think because of that, you're heading into this game, and these 2 games, and you just need to find a way to scratch and claw and get those extra runs, because you're not going to have a fully available Eyanson. You're probably not going to have a fully available Anderson for either game. So it's not going to be easy.
So what you're saying is you think whoever gets through this bracket, be it LSU or Arkansas, will win the national championship, will beat Coastal Carolina?
I would say more likely than not, yes, because I think, as we've kind of seen when these 2 SEC teams play the other teams, there's definitely a bit of a like a cavern between the two sides, just in terms of talent. I mean, LSU does a really good job of handling UCLA's pitching staff. UCLA used a lot of their better pitchers today, and LSU was still sort of cranking the ball and hitting all over the park. And then when Arkansas plays Murray State, they throw a no-hitter. So and that's a really good offense, and that Murray State team's known for their offense. So I think, like, when you sort of look at it's SEC against everybody else, I think the SEC teams are the best teams here right now, and whoever gets out of this, LSU definitely has the advantage, and they should be the favorite. But whoever gets out of this should be the favorite to win it all, in my opinion.
Rab, you agree with that, or do you see something else as maybe the thing LSU has to guard against?
Yeah, I just remember there have been times this year where the offense has just gone into the deep freeze. I'm thinking particularly about the SEC tournament when they got shut out by Ole Miss. The only time LSU got shut out all year, 2-0. I don't think they were super highly motivated to win that game. I think they knew they had a national top 8 seed wrapped up, and they did. But I think in the Little Rock game too. The first Little Rock game, the second of the three, the first one that they lost in the final round, they lost 10-4. It didn't pitch, it didn't do anything well in that game. And but at the same time, they've scored 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. They've scored 9 runs or more now in the NCAA tournament. So I think that's a good sign. But the offense can get a little bogged down. Stephen Milam, though he's still not hitting 300, or if he is, let's see. I'm going to look at the box score. Stephen Milam is now hitting 297 for the season. He is a big part of the engine of that team. He is like, why is this guy batting third? He's a little shortstop. You got all these big looking guys, Jared Jones and Ethan Fry and Jake Brown, and he's the guy who kind of the straw that stirs the drink, for this LSU offense. So if he keeps going well as he has most of the NCAA tournament, I think it would pose well for LSU. But that's the one that concerns me because the offense has kind of shorted out a couple of times this year, but not so much lately, but they have.
Sure. And I think that's always a concern, especially as Koki says, against Arkansas or even against UCLA, which has some good pitching. And you just never know. LSU hit them around a little bit yesterday, today, but things can change in a game-by-game situation up there in Omaha. All right.
Defense travels, though, and I guess that's the one thing that's been a mainstay for LSU all year. Defense travels, and that has not as big a factor in college baseball as it is in football or something like that, but it's been a very big underpinning for this team.
Yeah, 100%. All right, Koki's got the yawn on. I think that means it's time for us to finish up these guys.
Neither of us got a lot of sleep last night.
Finish our coverage and get to it. They asked Casan Evans in the post game if he was going to go get a nap, and he said 100%. So I think maybe we're all in that. LSU kind of has the luxury of playing the waiting game now. Obviously, the other bracket has a couple games left to play. And then you got to see the UCLA-Arkansas game. Can they get it in tonight? Who are you facing? Is that game going to be Wednesday night? Will it be Thursday before we see LSU baseball again? We don't know. What we do know is the Tigers are 1 win away from the championship series. And what we do know is that we will be with you every step of the way in Omaha. You can check out these guys' coverage at theadvocate.com/LSU. Something just happened in the Louisville-Oregon State game.
Looks like Oregon State is the bases loaded.
All right.
Yeah.
Oregon State is that game is 4-2.
Fourth inning. Yeah.
Threatening. So, anyway, we'll keep an eye on that one, and then Coastal Carolina awaits the winner of that game. LSU's in the Final Four. That's the bottom line right now. Any thoughts for that, guys, as we sort of wait for more LSU baseball, be it in about 26 hours or longer? We don't know with the weather. It's part of the waiting game, but LSU has the luxury of being able to wait.
This is hard to do, to get to this point. I think LSU fans can take it for granted. LSU has been to the World Series 20 times in the last 40 years. It's more than any school. They've won 7 national titles since 1991, more than any school in that time span. But it's not as easy to do. This is the 8th time LSU's gone 2-0. And 6 of the first 7 they won the title. So history is on their side. Doesn't mean anything this year. It doesn't help you get a hit or get a strikeout or anything like that. But it is on their side, and it's what LSU fans expect to do. And we're going to see them in bigger and bigger numbers here in Omaha while the Tigers are in it.
Yeah, and sort of Rav's point, if this team can hit the ball the way they have, and maybe not so much in the first game, but the second game especially, if they can be anywhere near that, this team is so hard to beat because they already have the pitching and they have better pitching depth than they've had in years past. And I have trouble seeing anyone beating them twice, maybe once, but not beating them twice when you have the situation, when you have what's going on right now between the offense and the pitching staff. Just start this tournament. Granted, it could change tomorrow, but if they keep at this level of play at the plate, especially. I have a lot of trouble seeing them losing twice and not winning this national championship.
All right, so there you have it. We will be back. These guys will probably have a video for us from somewhere, some undisclosed location in Omaha tomorrow at some point. And then we'll have post-game shows tomorrow night, Thursday, whenever the games may be. We will be there with you. Subscribe to the LSU Tigers at NOLA.com YouTube channel. And we will see you next time. For Scott Rabelais and Koki Riley, I'm Zach Ewing. Thanks for watching the LSU Sports Insider.